Hey guys, this is a segment from the Slumpbuster Podcast. You can find the full episode on any of the various podcast platforms, or of course, subscribe to us on YouTube for more of our content. Other than that, guys, sit down, bust a slump, and enjoy.
If you can't hit 25 home runs, you won't make it to the league. You can be a great fielder. You can be a great contact hitter. You can be a speed person who can steal bases, but we don't do that anymore. We don't need to do that.
You can strike out 100 and something times as long as you got 25 home runs.
Yeah, as long as your backspin on that swing, you getting that backspin rate is correct, then you could play in the league.
The world with baseball and basketball would be in better places if somehow H.G. Wells was correct and we could go back in time and just give Billy Beane and Daryl Morey a job doing something else. Give them a job in some accounting firm. Have them working for HR. Yeah, give them a job at HR Block doing taxes.
No. Help them stimulate the economy. Go work for Ford Motors so they don't have to get bailed out no more.
Exactly. Do that because they ruined two sports with their sabermetrics.
But I think sabermetrics have their place, right? I think data, like being able to have the ability to be objective about a player is like super important. That's what GMs used to be. But like you get so emotional about a player, like I'm just going to put him out there one more time and he's about to mess this up right now. But like really looking at numbers and trends, like I think it's definitely helped a lot of players stay in the league longer and definitely giving coaches a lot more leeway of like switching out players or whatnot. Otherwise, like it becomes this big ego game. Like, oh, you can't take out this player because he's been here for 5 years or something else like that. Like really just looking at the numbers. You can't say Daryl Morey and Billy Beane haven't been successful. Like with the A's rosters, number one, the A's the A's salary base. And
Tampa Bay makes less money, and they in their second World Series, brother.
It's one thing. Like everybody has different situations, but like to have the A's like be consistently in the playoffs, be consistent at the top end of the division, like that's an accomplishment in itself.
Consistently what, Jarrett? What are the A's? Consistently what?
Consistently, as Richard Sherman said about Michael Crabtree in the end zone, mediocre.
Consistently mediocre making the playoffs. And I'm so happy that Daryl Morey died this past week.
He didn't die.
He didn't. Yeah,
he didn't die because he's ruined the game. I love basketball with his sabermetrics. I wish he would have died, and I would bury him next to wherever Hitler's buried.
You know what? Okay, and that's a topic that I forgot even happened this week. We will get into that. I will close it out by saying here, Dodgers in 6. Sorry. And I do agree with you guys on the fact that baseball has driven more towards sabermetrics. It's hurt the ability to develop stars. Obviously, when you're doing more platoons, when you're bringing in people like for closers, spot innings, all this stuff, it's diluted the game so much, or players aren't allowed to show what makes them a superstar to the same ability unless you have a 5-star player like a Mookie Betts, and that's why I foresee the Dodgers winning. Now, moving on, I did want to touch on that Daryl Morey topic. So Daryl Morey, obviously no longer with the Houston Rockets. And I have had an appreciation for Daryl in the sense, I feel like he's built good, successful teams so many different ways. Obviously, whether it be with Dwight Howard, going out and getting Chris Paul, what they did this year with Russell. They've done a lot of unique team building exercises to make the Rockets a competitive winning franchise that, short of a Chris Paul injury a couple years ago, could have been in the NBA Finals and could have taken one home for Houston. But at the same time, as you mentioned, it keeps coming up short. I understand building around analytics, building around sabermetrics, but I feel like when that is the entire basis behind your team, sometimes it just falls short. I don't know if we have any Colin Cowherd listeners here, but of course, analytics is one of his big phrases, and I agree. There is like certain teams that just have that dog in them that rises above what the numbers and stat sheets say, and unfortunately, the Rockets haven't really had that.
Yeah, well, they probably could fill it with PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
I think it was this. I agree with you, and I told Brandon this on Sunday. He did a great job, and where sabermetrics come in, and him using the numbers were greatest for when he built the team around Yao Ming when he first got there, and he started building a team. And they brought in Yao Ming. He brought in Shane Battier, where everyone just saw Shane Battier. I mean, he was great at seeing someone's production through the numbers, right? He brought in Shane Battier. He said, just because I saw him do a podcast with The Ringer, and he said, based on he was the best passer in the NBA at getting the ball in the post. He had the highest percentage, and no matter the angle, different angles, he could get the ball in post. So using numbers that way, I like how he values players like Shane Battier. You know, Shane Battier goes to Miami. They win a title his first year there. Daryl Morey was great at building the teams, like you said, bringing in this player, bringing in that. The whole Harden deal. He was always great at trading away something and getting a value in a pick and then using that pick to get the players he wants. He was great, but then I'm a big believer in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and the theme of it, which is the monster you create will be the one to do you in. And his sabermetrics and his attention to detail of numbers is what did him in. I mean, he traded Ken Capella. He wanted Covington so bad this whole year. He kept talking about how he's a great player. I'm watching and I'm like, I don't see what he sees in Covington. I see a guy that's big, a little bit of a swing, but he's kind of mediocre. I mean, he's a solid player that would be in the NBA in a while, but he's never going to do anything special. He just saw this fitting the team so well that he traded all his players to all the big guys he had so he could get the pick and then trade that to Minnesota so he could get Robert Covington.
Robert Covington is a really good fantasy player on a really bad 76ers team when the process was still very early on. That's what he was. Those sabermetrics don't lie, but they will lie when you overcompensate. And that's the thing. You can't just be like gut feeling head coach GM. I got a gut feeling on this guy. I got a gut feeling on that guy. I like him because the way I see him do this. And then you can't be overly like, look at the numbers. It's got to be a balance. Yeah. And I think that it's just like basketball. It swung from being always a big man's game to then in the last 7-8 years being a really highly perimeter game where everyone wants more and more perimeter players with length and size to now this year with the Lakers coming in, you starting to swing.
It's going to overreact. The leagues have tendency to overreact.
Yeah, but you see it swing and it's going to end up somewhere in the middle. You want to have good quality shooting in basketball. You also want to have a presence in the middle for defense and offensive purposes, right? Offensive rebounding, putbacks, blocks and rebounds. Same thing with baseball. You can't be just a gut coach and you can't just be the sabermetrics guy. It's got to be somewhere in the middle where I'm saying this guy is my best player. He's in a slump. I'm not gonna platoon him with somebody else. The A's might platoon they're one of their best players because you know what? The split stats say this guy who plays every fourth day has good numbers against righties who throw fastballs at 90 miles an hour. And so they put in this Robbie Grossman, for Lariano, who's your best defensive outfielder and potentially could be one of your best hitting outfielders. But instead, you want to go with sabermetrics instead of saying, let's find that balance and let's stick with, some consistency. Which
it's funny how the two highest sabermetric guys in two different sports are now out of a job or left their jobs this week.